One, positioning is very important, not only for Firebrand, for everybody, but especially for a Firebrand. Because the Firebrand is a support class, it's a heavy support class, it's mostly tanky, even though it doesn't have a great amount of HP. If you're getting caught and killed before the rest of your sub squad, the usual reason for that is being out of position. So if that's happening, and this is not to criticize anybody, this is sort of like a self check. If that's happening to you during runs, it means you need to focus a little bit more on your positioning on the tag and in the squad. Now, I will go over the two important things about positioning. One, if you're a new player, for you, the most important thing is to get used to being in position, not so much being in the perfect position. I'll explain the difference. As a new player, the hardest thing is staying on the tag. So you need to focus and be right on top of the tag, because as the tag moves and as you get used to the way movement is done in WvW or the tag or whatever, you will generally find yourself falling behind at times. Tag will move, you will not react right away, and you will be over there. Now, because you were right on top of the tag, when that happens, you're still in a good position. Then you just need to get back to the tag and you recover and you're fine. If you, however, are over there already behind the tag, when the tag moves, you don't anticipate it or you don't react right away, all of a sudden you're way off. And you get caught and you get killed. And you don't realize it doesn't feel like you have done anything wrong. It's just that it's a consequence of if I can put it, the level of your development in terms of movement. And you'll go through different levels, and eventually, when things become easy, automatic, I like to say the game slows down for you, and you're not even going to notice when you're making the moves and when you're reacting, and you're reacting much faster because of it. Now, having said that, the perfect positioning for a Firebrand is not right on the tag. It's a little bit behind. It's about that distance behind the tag. I like to call it one mount length. The reason for
So
that,
yeah.
yeah, where the marker is,
Okay.
that far behind the tag. That's your perfect position. Of course, that means you have to be very good with your movement and not fall behind when the tag makes movement. Because if you fall further behind, then you'll get separated. But that is the perfect positioning. I will give you I will explain the reason for it, and I'll just explain that quickly here, and then we'll go into the other stuff, and I'll go into skills later. But for the mantras, they are in a cone in front of you. So when you use a mantra, it's a cone that is basically 90 degrees straight in front of you, and it has a range of 450. So if I'm sitting here, I use my mantra, it reaches about to where the marker is. That is in front of me, however. To the side and behind me, the range is only 180. Now, I will place down Purging Flames right on top of me right now to demonstrate what range 180 is. This is when range 180. So to the side, over here, to over here, to here is where the range of the mantras are. For that reason, you want to be one mount length behind the tag so that most of the squad ends up between you and the tag. Or worst case scenario, they're right behind you, because nobody should be more than one mount and a half length from the tag at any time. This way, you're making sure that you are giving all the effects of your mantras, which are very key, to everybody in your sub squad.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Yep. Go ahead.
Like the mantra of Solace, I see number 6. I see that the radius is, like you said, 180 degrees, but it say the range is 450.
Yes. That is the range of the cone that the mantra is. Like the mantra is a circle, which is 180.
Okay?
This is the circle, and it also has a cone in front of it. That ranges out to 450. Cone is like a triangle that starts from you and expands outwards. So this is why you want to be slightly behind in a perfect positioning situation, slightly behind so that you can cover everybody. A second thing about firebrands in this situation is, for example, on pushes, when you're pushing through a squad, this is you guys are the squad. We're pushing through. I'm saying push through, push through. Everybody gets through. Then at that point, you can turn around and drop a mantra to support the tail to get through as well. Especially if somebody's got interrupted, you can use the mantra of liberation, which is your
0.
yeah, the elite utility skill, which is also an AoE stun break. But you have to turn around to do it, because otherwise it's not going to hit anybody. There's an easy way to do that, and that is with your turnaround key, which can just turn you around while you're still moving the other direction, and drop the skill behind you while you keep moving.
So, but if I am where I am right now and jumping, the distance between you and me, it would be too far for them to reach. So, should
Yeah,
I
that's
just
too
the
far.
symbol of swiftness instead?
I don't understand what you
Okay,
mean.
so suppose that we are moving, but there's a small tail, and you want to help them catch up with us so they don't get eaten by the enemies. I put the symbol of
At that point, symbol of swiftness is not going to do anything.
Okay.
If they're too far behind and they get caught in the opposition's bomb, they don't need swiftness. They need stun break. They need stability. They need dodges. You cannot help them out if they're that far back. I'm saying this
Okay.
is what I'm saying. Don't focus on this. This is things that you will do when you get better and more comfortable with the build. What I'm saying is, when we've pushed through the squad, then you can do your turnaround. What was it called?
Look,
Uh, Hold on. Let me see what it was called. I forgot. You can set up a skill so that it basically turns you around. About face. Exact. Thank you. You can hit your about face, and you can deploy your skill behind you. That way, you're still moving in the correct direction, but you deploy your mantra facing backwards so that it extends further. That means only for those that are got interrupted, for example, and are right behind you. Those that get separated way far back, there's nothing you can do about, and you shouldn't be trying to do anything about. They got caught, it's over, it's finished. Only if the tag brings back the whole squad, they can be helped. Otherwise, don't stop. It's very key. You are the most important support in the squad and the subgroup. Not because you're the best at any particular thing, but because you provide a unique utility, which is stability. You provide it basically almost 100% uptime if it doesn't get stripped. This is what makes the firebrand basically essential. And this is your first and foremost responsibility within the squad as a firebrand. So I will go over stability first, and then I will go over the two main builds that right now are viable. For stability, essentially, this is what keeps the squad moving. That keeps the squad able to get out of bombs and so on. There's a lot of interrupts out there, so stability is essential. As a firebrand, you have, I would call it, 4 main sources of stability with a couple additional ones. The 4 main sources of stability are, of course, stand your ground. One sec. The mantra of liberation, which is your elite utility. Your hallowed ground, which is a utility. And tone 3, skill 5, epilogue, unbroken lines. These are the 4 main sources of stability. Additionally, there is skill 1 and tone 3. And I think there was another utility that can provide stability on occasion, but that is not generally used. In terms of use of these skills, your mantra of liberation is what generally will hear tags call small stab. It's applied, it gives you 1 stack of stability, and it gives you also resolution. Resolution is a good bonus because it reduces condi damage. However, the main use is the stability. Also, the skill has AoE stun break. So on pushes, even though it's not called, if you see in your sub squad that somebody is being interrupted, that they're stunned, stopped, whatever, pop it. Pop it and stun break them so they can keep moving. Your stand your ground is your main push source of stability. This is on big engages. This is, you want to use this before you hit any circles, before there is any ground damage, so that you have all those stacks when you're pushing into the squad. This is for the big engagement. When you're expecting to take damage, when you're expecting to get hit by condis, CCs, and so on, and things that will consume some of your stability. You need the 5 stacks because some of the stacks will get consumed, and that way you can get through it. Now, on big pushes, you'll have help from other professions, namely roads on revenants and so on. But this is the big one for firebrands. Most fights will be timed around this skill. When the skill is on cooldown, tags will be looking not to make big engagements unless everybody's already heavily committed and there's no way to get out of it. This is the skill that generates a lot of the movement when it comes to battles. Basically trying to get the other team to use it and then not have it for a push, and then looking for it to come back. Hallowed ground. This one is a little bit more situational, but it is a very important skill. Just like roads, it's a pulsing stability. It does not have, like roads, interrupts on the other team. However, it does give resolution as well. Now, every pulse gives a stack of stability and a stack of resolution. Depending on how things are traded, that's up to 8 pulses. So it is a powerful source of stability, which can help sustain if the squad is caught in a position where they can't move, or they're pushing into a position where movement is not going to be forthcoming. For example, if we are going to push through a choke, like this gate right here in front of us, right there, we're going to push through that choke, and the other team's on the other side. They already control the choke. We want to get through it. We need additional source of stability. Roads is a possible way, but also hollow ground. You place it right there, and as you move in, you start getting stability reapplied every second. That is the reason for it to drop it there. So, hollowed ground is a situational skill that is used generally in melee fights, or when we're pushing through somewhere where we cannot avoid the opposition's damage. Now, at the same time, they will be placing lines and so on in that spot just to consume our stacks of stability. So that reapplication of stability is key.
So, so if we have like 3 firebrands that put hollow ground back to back in a row, that's just beneficial at that point.
Yes, here's the thing. It only affects 5 people, though. So, one hollow ground is not going to be enough for the whole squad. This is something that every one of the firebrands needs to do. So, generally, the tag will coordinate it and call for it. You're not going to hear the hollow grounds being specifically called all that often because it is very situational. But you can be aware of it and drop it in certain situation, even if it's not being called. Your other skill, which is Tome 5, Tome 3, Skill 5, the Unbroken Lines. This is a key one. Even if you have applied 5 stacks of stability with your Stand Your Ground, when you go into Tome 3, on engagement, you're using this right away, even if you have stability on already. The reason for that is twofold. One, it gives Aegis and protection. Protection is damage reduction. Usually somebody else will have already given protection to the sub-squad. However, this does help prolong it. Aegis will act as a block. It will stop one hit on your sub-squad. Depending on traits, it might proc another Aegis for everybody in the sub-squad. But the most important part of it is it also gives 200 toughness. Now for you that doesn't matter. For other supports in the sub-squad doesn't matter. However, it does matter very much for the DPS classes, which will usually have low amounts of toughness and therefore low armor value. And they take more damage from the same skills than you would. And that extra toughness acts as almost as a damage reduction because it increases their armor rating, and so it reduces the damage they take from whatever hits them. So this skill is key. Even after using Stand Your Ground, you're still using number 5 on the push. Usually you're doing it a little later than Stand Your Ground. However, you're still using it when we get into the melee fight or into the main part of the fight for that reason. Number 4 is also a key skill here for a different reason. Now, number 4 used to be a lot more important than it is now. However, the importance is still there. Number 4 gives pulsing resistance. Now, it is placed down on the ground, much like hallowed ground. However, you cannot choose where to place it. It's just placed around you where you're standing. Resistance now doesn't block CC damage the way it used to. However, it still blocks soft CC that impedes movement. That is chill, that is slow, that is immob. And it gives resistance to that for 1 to 2 seconds per pulse. It only gives 3 pulses. However, that is enough time, the 3 pulses together, because direction stacks, to get a squad through a push without them being affected by a mob, or um, slow or chill. Very important skill. That is also one you want to be using once you engage. So 5 and 4 are two skills that you have to be using in those when you get into the thick of the fighting, when you're inside of an opposition bomb. If they catch you with the bomb, but you're unable to catch them, you're still using them because you're trying to negate their ability to interrupt part of the squad. Skill 3 is a reflect on tone 3. This is used occasionally. Essentially, that is to reflect those pesky ranger barrages back, or other barrages that use projectiles to rain damage. The interesting part about this is that you're not only reflecting it on the person that's dropping it, you're also reflecting it on the rest of the people around them. So this can damage a lot if they're not using their skills carefully. It is not one that you often use, and it's not one that will very much affect well-organized groups, because even if you catch them once, they're not going to make the mistake a second time. However, less organized groups will not realize what's happening. So that's one that can be used for that. And if attack calls for reflex, that's one of the skills you can use for that. No, it does not reflect siege. Siege is weird. Technically, it's a projectile, but the game doesn't treat it like that. So it will not reflect siege. Now, Tome 2 is one that you will use on occasion, and this is your basically cleanse and heal tome. The key one here is skill 5. That's the one that converts conditions into boons. This is sort of the moment where when you steal some of the thunder from the scrapper. But it also has the additional effect of increasing your healing. So that is very key. You want to pop this before you use any of the other healing skills. Your main healing skill here is number 4 and number 1. Number 1 is healing. It's very much like the mantra. It's in a cone in front and very small behind you. Number 4 is basically the key one though, because it is a water field. The healing is not as strong as number 1. However, the range of it is bigger. It's 360 degrees around you. So it's easier to affect more people. And on top of that, it's a water field that can be comboed for additional spike healing. You're not going to do yourself the actual healing. It will be everybody else using their blast finishers on top of it to generate the healing. However, that water field is what's important. For example, use. An example of the use. If you get caught by a big Scourge Well bomb, one of the things you can do is drop a water field and blast it to essentially sustain the damage while you're passing through and get over it. So let's say over here is where the Scourge Bomb is. You have to pass it through. You can put the water field as you're passing. It gets bombed, and so anybody moving through, they're getting healed almost as fast as they're taking damage. Skill 3 is a little bit of a boon generation. It gives vigor, swiftness, and regen. Most of these things, except vigor, you will be having from other sources, so it's not really key. It's sort of, if you're going to be switching out, you still have pages left. Just pop it, so you give an extra little bit. It's a limited use. The 50% endurance regeneration from vigor is good. However, it's not good enough to use up a page if needed. You're not going to be spending too much time in this um, in this tome because the main job you have is to apply stability. Skill 2 has the effect of doing a cleanse with some healing. It's basically when you're under really heavy pressure, your scrappers are not being able to cleanse everything and convert it into boons. You can use that in addition for additional cleansing. Tome 1 you will be rarely in. This is essentially for a very small range of situations, and there is a couple of things you need to know about it, however. Your skill 5 gives Ashes of the Just. This gives it to the people in your subgroup, which means that with the next strike, everybody is applying burn. Now this can be very powerful, or it can backfire very spectacular. Because Scrapper is so important, and there's so many Scrappers out there now that convert conditions into boons, applying burning in the wrong moment can actually make the other team a lot stronger rather than weaken them, because burning gets converted into Aegis. So you do not want to pop this skill, for example, before the main engagement. For the simple reason, the Scrappers haven't used any of their cleansing skills yet, and you will apply burning, which they'll promptly convert into Aegis and block a bunch of hits from the rest of your squad. This is mostly when you go into when the fight is being won, dropping, for example, skill 4. It's a fire field, and it will get you tags. This is the way you get some bags out of the firebrand. However, the key part is to be disciplined and not go into Tome 1 before the battle is being won. If you go in and you're getting rid of other skills you might still need, or you drop it too early when they still have a fighting chance and their Scrappers start converting the burning into Aegis, it can backfire. So be aware of that. Skill 3 is your pull. It's not an overly powerful skill. It can do some. The range is relatively small. It takes some time to channel. So if you're trying to pull somebody, usually you want to place it in front of them in the direction they're moving, so that by the time the skill is channeled, they're within it. It can be used a bit on walls, and it's good to group up downs. For example, we've pushed through, there's downs on the marker, and there is another group that's incoming. We don't have time to spend. You just drop it. You group them up for other people in the squad to cleave, and you keep going, and you're back into your support situation. Number 1 is also your basically main source of damage. It applies burning. It's a cone in front. It's the same. It's sort of like a cleave. You go over downs, you press it, it will get you tags. Again, Tome 1 is rare to use. You can use when you're overwhelming the opposition, or when the fight is almost or about to be done. On downs, mostly. Now, in terms of weapons, there's only really 2 types of weapons you're going to be using, for the reason that they are the ones that bring what you need. You have the staff, that's essential for two reasons. It gives you skill 4, which is Empower. This is a call you'll hear often before engagements. Usually it's other professions that provide these stacks of might in a fight. However, before the fight, it is the firebrand that can generate the stacks of might. Most other professions generate it when they're already in combat. So this is the skill that does it. Empower. Now it doesn't place it forever. However, it gives you enough power to increase your initial hit. The second reason for the staff, and this is skill 3 and skill 2. They're both 1200 range, so they have a generally good range, but you're not going to be using them for damage. They're used for other reasons. Skill 3 is swiftness. You will sometimes tags will call for swiftness and empower, or empower and swiftness. Usually it's swiftness and then empower. It will be called symbols because it's symbol of swiftness. So symbol, since it's channeling, it's pulsing, then you can do the empower while the actual symbol is pulsing. That's why it's usually symbols and empower. In Holy Strike, which is your number 2 on the staff, this is your blast finisher. Now, you can use combos 3, 2, and what this does is it gives swiftness, it gives some healing because number 2 Holy Strike does healing, but it also puts a light field and blasts it, which does a lot of cleansing. This is a good combination if your tomes are on cooldown and you're not in Maze Shield on top of a fight. You can use this when it's melee. You can use it on top of the squad if we are ranging each other. This is a good way to cleanse a lot of conditions quickly, especially if the scrappers are being overwhelmed. However, don't use it if the scrappers are doing their job well, because you're reducing the amount of boons the scrappers can provide when they cleanse conditions. So this is very much like the Tempest. You want to be cleansing only after the scrappers have exhausted their ability to cleanse, because otherwise you're taking away their ability to provide boons. They're providing boons from the condition the opposition is applying. And the line of warding. This is your number 5 on the staff. It is also light field. It can also be combined with the Holy Strike for the same reason. And this is good because line of warning has a 30-second cooldown and symbol of swiftness has a 15-second cooldown, which is much longer than the 8-second cooldown of Holy Strike. So in that essence, you can do two combos back to back within 8 seconds of cleansing through a light field that's being comboed. You by yourself. Again, those are to be used when other sources of cleansing are unavailable. Your number 1 is basically your auto. This is for attacking ranged targets. It's a little slow, and it's nothing special. Keep in mind a couple of situations when to use and not to use symbols. For example, when we're stacking and we're going to be using stealth, you do not want to be using the symbol of swiftness at that point. Usually the tag will give you a heads up warning. In any case, even if they don't use the symbol of swiftness unless the tag calls for symbols. Just for that reason, you want to keep the ability for the squad to stealth on a short notice and quick. That would mean when you hear gyros being called, that means you'll be using your number 2 on your stack. Now let's switch to Mace and Shield. This is the second combination of weapons. You can't hear me.
You kind of a bit more muffled now.
Mm,
Like you're like underwater a little bit. You're less clearer.
is this better?
Yes.
Okay. My mic. It's an old headset and it plays with me at times. Do I need to? Did you get all of that up to now, or do I need to go back over some things?
Yeah, I got all of it.
Okay.
Yep, me too. I get all of it. That's very
Okay.
good. I learning a lot of things because I mistake a lot. You when you saying that correctly because I do kind of slightly upwards. So I do a top with it something like it's not it should be do.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you for
No
training.
worries.
That's perfect. I love it. I see that it makes change because when I do something in the Hue brand, I still learning, but I try to do the best I can. But it's not worked it like you say. It's correctly now understand how it's work.
Yeah. The
I,
main thing is like this training is not. It's not gonna make anybody better. This is to make help you understand the mechanics of
exactly,
it,
exactly,
so
exactly.
that you can then notice when things are happening and then recognize what's happening and look what you can correct to get better at it. Um, Mace Shields is a important combination. I will go into traits and builds later, but I will mention a couple of things.
The reason I say that because whatever you said before, I correct very good because I die for no reason. When you say that now, I understand now. I know what I'm doing right
Yep,
now because
yep,
before I didn't know shit because I'm dying for no reason because I'm yeah exactly I this is a correct learning. I'm learning for 100%. Thank you very much for this because I don't know how I die because I'm outwards. I'm off off the tag. We don't not go there, and I'm so weaknik. I'm not on the hill. I support for the group, but I'm off, so I'm die. So I don't know why, but now I understand. I I I really appreciated that. Thank you
yep.
very much.
No problem. So I will go over the traits later. However, there are three skills that are your main skills here. This is skill 3 on the mace because it gives protection. If traded, it also gives aegis. And this is key because it's a channel skill and it applies it for the duration of the channel. It does some damage, but that part is not important. Skill 4 on the shield is exactly the same as skill 3 on the mace. However, the radius is much bigger. And that is the main thing. Again, though, it is like the mantras, a cone in front of you. So keep that in mind when using the skills. Positioning is important because of that. It's not going to affect those behind you. It's really small range to the side and behind you, but it's a large range in front. Again, it applies protection and aegis if traded for it. And skill 5 is your shield. Now, this one is situational as well, and it's an important skill, but it's important to be used in the correct moment. For two reasons. One, it is also knockback. It is a knockback, so it is an interrupt. However, it knocks people away from you. So, on a push, for example, as you're sitting there, just sit there. I'm leading the squad, we're pushing in, and I'm popping it. Well, at that moment, I'm sending people scattered in different directions. We don't want to do that. We want to actually group up people so that they're grouped inside our bomb. Using the skill at that moment, you will actually help them being dispersed out of our bomb. So that would be a bad moment to use it. Now the shield also reflects, so it is good to use, for example, if we're being attacked on top of us, you can use it as a reflect, just the same way as skill 3 on Tome 3.
So basically, it would be good against the magma cloud because they never stack.
Yes. Yes. It's also a light field, so beware of that. Don't pop it when we're expecting to stealth, because if you pop the shield, it will apply a light field, and it will reveal people, and our stealth will fail. So it is a good skill, but it has to be used at the right moment. Now, for example, if we're pushing right here, we're on a bridge at hills, you know, where it's a chasm down below. Squad's right there, and you can pop it as we run into them. Send them over the edge. They're out of the fight. That is a good moment to actually use it like that. In open field, no.
Okay.
On a choke,
It would be great. Okay.
on a choke, maybe. That's using it in the correct moment is what's key for this skill. It also, after you use it, it's got a duration of 4 seconds. In those 4 seconds, if you click it a second time, it will pop the actual shield, and it will heal. So it is a good, it's a little good source of extra healing if it's needed when all other skills are used up and we need some more healing on a retreat, for example. We are getting pressure applied from behind. You can pop it. It does some reflex, and then pop it a second time to do some extra healing. Okay. I will go into the utilities now. We went over hollowed ground. We went over stand your ground. I will elaborate a little bit more about the mantra of liberation, which is your elite mantra skill. It has the same rules as the other mantras: small range behind, 180, and 450 in front. It has a slightly longer recharge rate, and this is key in its use. Generally, this is up to the tag to be sort of counting down and keeping track, not to exhaust all of the basically charges of it. This is going to be the small stab because it applies resolution as well, and it's also an AoE stun break. This means that anybody that's within its range that is interrupted will be rallied. It will be stun broke out of whatever is holding them, unless it's chains. Just the chains are the ones, there is no stun break out of chains. So you ideally want to always have one charge left in reserve for a situation when you need to stun break either yourself or somebody else in your sub squad. So if you're running low on charges, or your tag is calling them too quickly, you can, not during combat, but between combat, you can tell them, you're calling it a little too quick. We're running out of mantra of liberation, so that they can correct their timing. It's a timing thing, and everybody at some point will get the timing wrong, even tags. It's not easy keeping track of all kinds of cooldowns. So don't worry about that. Just don't do it in a bad way, like, oh, you dumbass, you called all the mantra of liberations, we had nothing, not like that. Just say, we were running out, it was a little bit too quick, whatnot, just to remind them if they're calling it a little bit too fast. It will happen to every tag, so at one point or another. Now, there's two other skills, and this is the heal skill. The heal skill is the mantra of solace. The reason is simple. Healing is not going to do much healing, and it's a self heal. It's a very small heal. It's not that important. What it does, however, it gives quickness when traded, and it gives ages. So this is an important skill to use in the correct moments. Now, quickness means that people need less time to channel their skills. Things that take, for example, 2 seconds to cast will take less time. That's where quickness is important. Firebrand can be one of the main sources of quickness. There's a couple other sources of quickness too. And I'll go over the builds when it is worth using the quickness and when it's not. That will come next. But just highlighting it here. The ages is important because this is a skill that generally recovers charges pretty quick. I think about every 9 seconds you get another charge, and you start with 3. So within 9 seconds of an engagement, you can generally generate four times you can generate ages for you and your sub squad. That means 4 block shots. That can be very powerful. So this is your skill for that. This is where it's used. This is not used as a heal skill. Do not think of it as a heal skill. Even for yourself, the amount of healing it does is negligible. You're going to get a lot more healing from other sources. So don't use it as a heal skill. You're using it to apply quickness, and you're using it to apply ages. For example, if we're doing a push, sometimes a push through will involve a double dodge or a long double dodge. So you're dodging. At that point, you apply ages, take a couple of steps, dodge a second time. That's a long dodge. The reason for it is the ages will block a hit, and the second dodge extends the amount of land you cover, essentially. 2 dodges back to back, it's a shorter distance. A little bit elongated, it's a much longer distance, and you're going through the whole opposition squad, or you're basically shortening the distance between us much faster. That's a good moment to use the mantra of solace. Generally, you're looking to use it for quickness and whenever aegis is needed. Now, going over those 4, they're pretty much essential. The hollow ground is essential because of the resolution nowadays. It reduces damage from CCs, so it's, I would say, you can't get away without having it on your bar. Yes, I will go into that when I get to the builds. I will go over all of those things, and I'll explain the reasoning behind using them and in the 2 different builds that I'll cover. I just want to go over the rest of the utilities right now. Basically there is 1 utility slot left that is sort of interchangeable, depending on the build you're using. Most of the time, you will be using a few skills here. They're not that many, so I'll go over them quickly and explain them. Mantra of Lore is basically your cleansing mantra. It does healing through regen. However, you're not going to be using it in that way. You're not using it to heal with it. You're using to cleanse with it. It removes 2 conditions per charge. So if your squad is having trouble with conditions being applied, you don't have a scrapper in your sub squad, for example, or a tempest, that are doing the heavy lifting on cleansing, you can put that as your additional utility. You can cleanse basically 6 conditions in about 2 seconds by using up all the charges. They recharge pretty quickly, so it is a very good source of cleansing if you need it. That also means if your scrapper is not being able to cleanse everything that's coming your way, or your tempest, you can put that for additional cleanses. Again, if you have a scrapper in the subgroup, usually you don't want it, or when you're using it only after they've exhausted their ability to cleanse, because it does not convert conditions. It used to convert conditions into boons on the last charge. It no longer does that. So any condition you're cleansing cannot be converted into boons by the scrapper. That is very important, not to take away, because the scrapper is doing two in one there. It's taking away conditions and it's giving boons. But if the conditions are already cleansed, it cannot do it. Additionally, there is the Sanctuary. Now, this one you're not going to use very often. It does some healing within it, but it is a Reflect and a Light Field, and it's also a very strong CC for stationary targets. So anything that gets caught inside of it will be CC'd hard in terms of NPCs. So, for example, if we're going into Bay on the Lord, where we're gonna be getting hit with crap from all the clouders from out far, you can place it on top of the Lord. It will both break the bar, and it will reflect projectiles back. Be careful though. Don't switch out for it necessarily if you don't need it, because it doesn't have other utility. The healing is not that great. It does pulse in place. It does allow for cleansing with blasting, as it is a light field. However, it is not that big, so you have to be inside it, and it will CC the Lord, but it is a full skill being used just for that. It's situational. You can switch to it for a certain situation, but it's not one you should be running normally. Purging Flames is another skill that is very situational, and the situations for its use are quite few nowadays, because the amount of scrappers and because burning is converted into Aegis nowadays. Also, it has a very small radius. It's only 180, and so its usefulness, it's very limited. It does do cleansing, however. So every pulse is cleansing a condition. Again, in very limited situation, in a choke situation, or you're backed off somewhere where you can't move and you have to take a hit, heavy condi hit, scrappers, tempests, whoever is doing the cleanses is not being able, you have it on, you can drop it on. It's also a fire field, so when comboed, it will give power to everybody. But the situation used is it's not that often. I'm just putting it out there so you know what it does. There's a couple of other. Judge's Intervention is essentially a teleport that you can use to the enemy. This is an offensive teleport. You need a target, and then you press it, it will go to it, and then you have MI, which is Merciful Intervention. That is a teleport to a friend or to a down. For example, there we go. And you can direct it where you want to teleport. Now, there's got to be somebody in the circle when you use it, otherwise it will not teleport you there. Merciful Intervention does quite a bit of healing. However, it has a long cooldown, and it's very easy to get you out of position if you're not comfortable using it well. It can also get you back into position. So it is a skill that is very much based on comfort. In terms of revival, it does say 5%, but it was nerfed to 1%, so it's not gonna do much in terms of revival. It's a useless skill in terms of reviving anybody. It is one of the few, basically the only mobility skill you can have as a support, because the offensive teleport you're not gonna use. This one you might use if you're very much how can I say, comfortable with it. Now there's two more skills that work in combination, and because of that they're too costly, and this is why they generally will not get used. Save Yourself together with Contemplation of Purity. Now this is another source of cleansing, essentially, with the additional bonus of applying lots of boons to yourself. It's a bit of a, if I can call it, selfish use of skill. It can be useful in limited situation when you need to quickly get rid of all conditions of everybody. This is not going to be the case in 95 or even more % of the time in WvW. I'm just saying it so that you're aware it's there. Essentially, you use Save Yourself, which brings all the conditions off your sub-squad on top of you, and you're immediately using Contemplation of Purity to cleanse them all. So the two skills together means that you have cleansed all conditions off everybody in your sub-squad, essentially instantly. And you have applied for yourself a bunch of boons, but only to yourself. You don't apply it to the sub-squad. Because of the changes, where resistance no longer stops condies from applying damage, you can no longer use Save Yourself without Contemplation of Purity, because you need to get rid of those conditions as soon as you've brought them to yourself, or they're going to kill you. And as such, the cost to have both skills on your bar is too high, and this is why this is not used. The last one I will go over is Retreat. Now this is specific. The skill is not necessarily there for use. However, for the Aegis build, which I will go over in a second, this is a good skill. The reason for it, it gives basically max, well, it's not max because they changed it from 30 seconds to 60 seconds, but it applies a lot of swiftness. If you have that on your bar, you can be using it essentially on cooldown, because it recharges faster than the swiftness and the Aegis wears off. Now, it applies Aegis with the same duration, which is over 30 seconds as well. And what this does is guarantees that when your sub-squad goes into combat, they're going with Aegis, and the first hit they take will be blocked, no matter what. So this is a good skill for that reason. And while out of combat, because it takes only about 24 seconds, depending on the build, to recharge a charge, and it applies about 30 to 35 seconds of the boon, means that you can basically constantly reapply it and have close to a minute of Aegis and swiftness every time when you're about to go into combat. So you have swiftness all the time, and you have an Aegis all the time for the first hit.
Okay.
It also, if traded, can convert conditions into boons. It only converts one condition into boon. However, that can matter, because in this case, when you're using it and you're cleansing a condition, you're still converting it into a boon, so that even if you're doing it in front of your scrapper before your scrapper does it, you're not taking away from the effect of the sub squad. This is because it's a shout. I'll explain in the build in a second how that happens. The same thing is true for the stand your ground. However, stand your ground is not used for cleansing conditions. It's used specifically and only for those 5 stacks of stability in the correct mode. Okay, any questions about the skills?
So you're not considering Mantra of Potence, right?
Mantra of Potence is hold on. Let me just pull it up. Where is it?
It's the first one of all the Mantra.
Right. Mantra of Potence, you're not, for a simple reason. The only thing you're actually getting out of it in combat is the quickness. Now, the quickness is good. However, it's too much of a cost for a single boon to have a whole skill dedicated to it. You're only getting a second and a little bit of quickness from each use, so there isn't that much value in it.
Okay, how come mine say that I give mites?
Yeah, you do give might. However, in combat, you're not the one that's gonna be generating the might for the sub squad.
Okay.
The firebrand generates might for everybody when people are out of combat. In combat, it's going to be the revenant, it's going to be the warrior, even Ellies that are going to be generating a lot more might for the sub squad than the firebrand can ever do.
Okay, so retreat should be a better choice for everyone.
Retreat is a better choice because you're doing a few things together. You're reapplying swiftness if it gets stripped, so you're keeping that additional speed going. You're giving the extra Aegis, and you're also cleansing.
Okay.
The Aegis is the key in one of the builds that I'm going to cover. Yeah, movement is the key. In WvW, the most important part is it all starts and ends with movement, and then everything else comes after that. Movement and positioning. Aegis is very strong, especially as the meta right now is more tilted towards power. Even though Condis are overpowered, still the meta is currently more tilted towards power. So, those arc dividers, those hammers that are coming at you, Aegis just makes them look puny. Yes, positioning for the firebrand is hard to master. It takes time. You have to get comfortable with it. And you have to remember that you're not the most mobile. You don't have skills for quick movement when you get out of position. This is why it's very. This is why I said before, start on top of the tag and try to be right on top of the tag until you're so comfortable that you're doing it automatically, and then look to get into the perfect positioning. Don't look for the perfect positioning to begin with. Ahead of the tag on a firebrand is a bad spot. That's exactly where you don't want to be, because you're not giving anything to anybody with your mantras, and they are the skills that you're using the most. Okay. Any other questions?
Were you saying we should trade out the retreat for some other utility?
Yes, in situations.
Okay.
Retreat is mostly for when you're running the Aegis Firebrand build, which I'll show you in a second. When you're doing Healbrand, that means when you don't have a Scrapper in the sub squad or you don't have a Tempest in the sub squad needs more healing, more cleansing, then you're going with the Mantra of Lore, because that will give a little bit more healing and it will give the cleansing conditions. Yep, go ahead.
No, okay, thank you.
Right. The sanctuary, it's limited in use. Save yourself is very selfish. Like I said, that one is very limited in use as well. You can also use hold your line, but it again, it can do some Condi cleansing, some regen, and additional protection. But it is just one charge, and it's a long cooldown, so limited use. Those are the two main ones: Mantra of Lore and Retreat, that you're gonna have in that spot. Merciful Intervention if you need. Oh yeah, one more. I forgot about this one. This one is not that unimportant, so I'll get over it. So, Signet of Mercy. This is your one skill that can res people. It also gives you concentration as a passive, so it can help with boon duration, depending on how your build is done. The radius is small, it's only 180. The range is 900, so it's a good range. However, it does take some time to channel. So, in terms of usefulness, it can be useful. The recharge is very long. It can be useful in small groups. For example, if you're in a 10-man group, 15-man group, where every single person is very key, anybody you lose, the squad suffers a lot. That can be put in there at a high cost for saving somebody when they get down. If you don't have, for example, Chronos in the sub squad, if there's a Chrono, there's no reason for running that. The Chrono should be using the illusions because it's a lot stronger. They can be used a lot more often, and they can res up to 3 people, not just 1. Also, the function gyro on the Scrapper or the elite banner on the warrior can have the same use. Though the elite banner on the warrior is usually used to finish downs, not to res them, and has a very long cooldown. So it's again in very specific situations that's being used. Yes, the battle standard. Just wanted to mention that the Signet of Mercy is something that you can use in specific situations. But normally you shouldn't have it on your bar, especially if the squad is bigger, because it costs too much and you're not going to use it very often. It takes a long time to channel, during which time you're not doing other skills. So it is for small, tight-knit groups, but not so much for a bigger squad. Merciful Intervention, no, it doesn't res anybody anymore. It just doesn't. It's been nerfed so much that you have a better chance of winning the lottery than resing somebody with Merciful Intervention. It's more your one mobility skill. If you're comfortable using it, it's the skill with which you can get back to the not for resing. But Signet of Mercy is specifically for resing. That's its use. Okay. Let's go into the trait lines now.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but came in late. What were your What were your first 5 utilities? Just by name?
Right. Okay. So you have the Mantra of Solace for your heal skill. Really, there is no other viable choice for WvW among the heal skills. You have the Mantra of Liberation on your elite. Occasionally, you might want the Renewed Focus, but that's very limited use. That's basically your invuln skill. Mantra of Liberation. Then you have Stand Your Ground, which it's really, as a support firebrand, it's non-negotiable. You have to have it. And the other one is the Hallowed Ground. After the changes to resistance, the resolution it gives on top of the stability, that makes it too valuable not to have. Again, it's not always used, but it is. You have to have it for a situation. There's enough cases during a fight or during a run that you're gonna run and need it. So, and then the last one you can switch out depending on your build and depending on your needs. Like you can still be running the Aegis build and be using Mantra of Lore because extra cleansing is needed, for example. But those other 4, you don't really have a choice.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna go into the build right now. I don't know if I can turn this on. Let me see if I can turn my camera on, so it will be a lot easier. Okay. Is this working? Can people see?
Yes.
What should we see?
The
You should
stream.
be seeing
Just
my
icon.
screen, yeah.
Yeah, it's stream.
Okay. Now I'm doing it so that I can show you the actual skills and I can see the names because I'm bad with names and I don't remember names well. I will still try and ping things in squad chat as well so that people can see and read it as well. But I will start with the Aegis build. Now, the Firebrand, I will go over the Firebrand and explain this first, and then we'll go over the additional trait lines. Firebrand trait line, it will give you quickness in specific situation. So this is the key one, which is the first selectable trait, the non-passive. Now you have 2 main options here. The third one is more offensive. And it's when you're using an axe, which you'll never be using as a support firebrand. The 2 options here are the 3 additional pages on your tomes, which is the Archivist of Whispers and the Liberator's Vow. Now, for this build, there is a reason why I'm using Liberator's Vow, and it is that it gives quickness with the use of your heal skill. That means that when you're using Mantra of Solace, every time you use it, you give over 3 seconds of quickness. Now, this has a ICD on the actual skill, which is 7 seconds. So it will only trigger once every 7 seconds. That means it's giving 50% uptime on quickness duration when used right now. When my boon duration is maxed out, it will give over 50% because it will be close to 4 seconds. And I will tell you how to max out your concentration and your boon duration because you want to have that as high as possible. When you're being a Healbrand, however, this will not be the case. Most often, you will get more value from Archivists of Whisper, because the extra 3 pages will be key for additional stability, additional heals, whatnot. Because it takes a long time for the actual tomes to recharge. The third selectable is pretty much a non-brainer, because it lowers the recharge time for your tomes. So you don't really have a choice here. You have to use Lore Master, because it lowers by a lot the recharge time on your tomes. Quickfire will place Ashes of the Just, which applies burning. In the current iteration, it's a double-edged sword, and on top of that, the extra time for recharge on the tomes is too much of a cost. And the last one, it doesn't even get close to that. In Tome 2, there's a couple of things normally. Now, you can have weighty terms sometimes for additional CC. Basically, when you're in melee range, using your mantras will slow the opposition. It doesn't apply that much slow, and it has a very long ICD, which is 10 seconds, which makes it a very limited value. The legendary lore, it does give a little bit of extra boons when you're going into Tome 2 and 3. A bit of regen, a bit of protection. Again, not much value for it. This is the key one. And this is your main source of quickness as a firebrand, regardless what you choose on the first selectable. It is the second selectable. That's Stalwart Speed. And it applies quickness every time you grant stability or ages. Now, it has a 7-second ICD, so again, it will only give you quickness, 50 to 55% uptime with this skill, with this trait, when you're giving stability or ages. Now, because you're applying stability and ages pretty much all the time, you don't have to really think about proccing this. It will get procced most of the time on time. So this will mostly be proccing, on cooldown. And this will generate anywhere between 40 to 50% of the quickness for the squad. Whenever in fighting, this is the skill that will generate 40 to 50% of the quickness always. Now, if you have the second one and you're using your Mantra of Solace correctly in fights at the right moments, you can approach 80% quickness uptime for the squad just by yourself, without the need for big gymnastics or anything specific, or making big sacrifices. The 3 pages are valuable, but in the Aegis build, this is worth it, and I'll explain in a second. So this is the Aegis build, and the second trade line, and this is the one that varies, is Valor. So here you're getting basically extra Aegis. Your passive gives you an Aegis whenever your health goes below 50%. So that is a block right away. You also gain protection when you're blocking with Aegis, so you basically will have protection all the time. It will get reapplied all the time. So personally, you will have the damage reduction from protection nonstop. And then when you block, you gain might, which is not really that important because you're not going to be doing damage, but it's a passive trade. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, the key one here is this one. communal defenses. And I'll explain why you're taking that over strength of numbers, which is also very powerful. Strength of numbers is essentially because it refreshes every 3 seconds. It is a powerful trait to have. It gives 100 toughness to your sub squad at all times. So for you, it doesn't matter. However, for the DPS in your sub squad, that will reduce the damage they take because it increased their armor rating. It is, however, not as powerful as communal defenses because communal defenses procs an Aegis for your whole sub squad. And when you proc the Aegis for the whole sub squad, it only happens every 15 seconds. However, when you block an attack, you give Aegis to everybody in your sub squad. That is a second Aegis right there. So everybody has one. You block an attack because you get hit. Everybody gets a second one. Within 1 second, you've blocked 2 attacks. That's very powerful. 15-second ICD, it's pretty long, so it's not going to be, a silver bullet that you can block all damage with it. However, it is powerful, especially when you have additional sources of Aegis. For example, you have Retreat, which gives you Aegis twice because you have 2 charges. Mantra of Solace gives you Aegis 3 times because you have 3 charges. Then you have Shield of Judgment, it gives you once. You have Protector Strike, it gives you once. Right there, those are 7 sources of Aegis. Then you go into Tome 3, and you have your skill 5, which also gives you Aegis every time you use it. So you use those in a row, you can get 8 sources of Aegis. On top of that, communal defenses will proc. That's 9 sources of Aegis. Now, going through all these skills will take about 15 seconds because you're not going to be clicking them all at the same time. So by the time you're done with a rotation of all of them, for example, you will have communal defenses proc an additional time, and you have 10 sources of Aegis. So within 15 to 20 seconds, you can give your sub squad up to 10 times Aegis. That can be very, very powerful if used correctly. Now, the key here is that Aegis stacks in duration. So what you want to be doing is applying the Aegis only after it's been used up. You don't want to be clicking this twice in a row without the Aegis being used. This is where it's key to keep track of the boons on you and your sub squad. Whether you have it on yourself, it's not that important because you're the tanking one in the sub squad. You will survive. If the big bomb hits the sub squad, you should be the last one going down. It is the DPS guys that you have to be aware whether they have Aegis on them or not. That's when you're using your skill to apply Aegis. That's who is your trigger for whatever skill use you're doing. Not yourself, but the people in your sub squad, specifically the DPS people. That's who they are giving you basically the indication when to use skills. Over here, this one, there's a couple that it depends on it's not the most valuable one. Strength of the Fallen, it's essentially if you get down, your health degenerates slower and it removes a condition. So it's a bit of a help if you get down. This one. Strength of the Fallen, this is your first trait in the Valor trait line, the first selectable active trait. Now, there's lesser smite conditions that can be used as well. However, that's for meditations. So if you're not using any meditations on your utility bar, that is not useful. If you're using, however, Merciful Intervention, then you can trade that. Also, there's Focus Mastery. However, we're not using Focus, so it's not valuable. And again, this is not a very valuable one because naturally you don't want to be in downstate, and it does not do that much for you when you're in downstate. But for the lack of a more valuable trait, it's Strength of the Fallen. Now, on the last one, the last choosable one, there's two primary ones that can be a choice. It's Altruistic Healing and Tenacious Defense. Now, Altruistic Healing heals you every time you place boons. So this makes you essentially pretty much unkillable until everybody around you is dead, because every time you give a boon, that's ages, stability, whatnot, quickness, swiftness, you're healing yourself. However, the really valuable one is Tenacious Defense, because every time aegis applied by you blocks, it recharges your tone 3 by 1 second. So I'm right now in tone 3, and I will get out of it. I have 74 seconds to wait until it recharges. Now, I use my Mantra of Solace. That applies aegis to me, and it applies aegis to the other 4 people in my sub-squad. We get hit, everybody blocks 1 hit, and it will recharge my Tome 3, Tome of Courage by 5 seconds. So every time you grant your sub-squad aegis, and they block a shot with it, your Tome gets recharged by 5 seconds. We just went over that you can apply aegis to your sub-squad up to 10 times in about a 20-second period. 10 times 5 is 50 seconds. So you can recharge your Tome 3 in anywhere between 20 and 30 seconds and be able to go back into it. That is extremely powerful, and that is why you can afford not to have the extra 3 pages here, because you're actually recharging it in less than 50% of the time it takes for it to recharge, so you get extra 5 pages at that point, and in the same time it takes to have the 8 pages, you actually have 10 or more. And that's why you can go and get the extra quickness on the Firebrand trade line. This is the reason, Tenacious Defense. And this plus Communal Defense is why you're taking the Valor trade line. The other ones are not that valuable. Those 2 are the really valuable traits, and that give you very big value. Now, the third line is Honor. This one is pretty much straightforward. It's not going to change much. I'll just go over a couple of things that can be a variation depending on what you're set up for. Now, your first choice is the Invigorated Bulwark. This one pretty much is the same, whatever support build you're building, because it gives you extra healing power towards others. Now, even if you're doing the Aegis build, which is not specifically built to heal, you're still healing quite a bit. So this is extra healing that you cannot afford not to have. It also reduces the recharge time on your mace. So your mace 3, which gives protection and aegis, has a shorter recharge time because of Invigorated Bulwark. lesser shield of absorption is a very limited use. This is mostly if you stop to res allies, it will pop a little bubble above you that is very similar to the shield 5 bubble. It's not very useful, very limited use. I wouldn't use it. And lesser symbol of protection. Again, it only gives a bit of protection. It's a light field, but it's not that useful. This is the one, invigorated bulwark. The vigorous precision you're not gonna get very often, and it's not that important because you're not gonna be critting anybody too much. Actually, you rarely crit anybody because you're not built for that. This one is important. The selfless daring. It's a passive, so you get it anyway. At the end of your dodge, you're healing yourself and you're healing your subgroup. It's important, and this is why firebrands need to be using their dodges, because you're helping your sub squad. It adds up. It adds up. It's only about 850 healing, as you can see, but it adds up. Every dodge, 850 healing. It's powerful. Now, here is the added bonus. And there's a couple of things here you can trade, which is the Honorable Staff, which can give you more concentration for when you're in staff. That is for boon duration. It's helpful. However, this has a lot more value because, especially if you're traded into Aegis, it is very valuable. Every time Aegis that you apply heals the target that blocks. So, yes, it is gear related. Yeah, this is based on your boon duration. Like if you're not the healing, but your
Concentration?
No. The what was it? God damn it! There comes me forgetting. Your healing power. That's based off of your healing power. How much you're doing. The higher your healing power, the more it will do. The same with selfless daring. Now, the key to this one is that even the Aegis you give to other people, like when you apply Aegis to the people in your sub squad, when they block, when that Aegis blocks on them, they still get healed. So this trait is proccing healing not only for yourself, but everybody that you've given Aegis to. Because the Aegis is actually, the game treats that Aegis as being yours. And so whenever that Aegis is being triggered, that's your skill being triggered, your traits being triggered. And it's applying the healing to the person that has the Aegis. So this is a very powerful tool. Every time, like we went over it, up to 10 times you give Aegis to somebody. When they blocked, up to 10 times they're being healed by 757. You add it up, that's a lot of healing. And that's why the concentration of the staff, even though it gives you a lower recharge time for your staff skills, is not worth taking if you're into Aegis. If you're into a healing build, I would say maybe Honorable Staff might, it becomes more competitive. I would still probably, did I, yeah, I did ping it. Now, Purity of Bodhi, you get a little bit of endurance regeneration, so you should be regenerating dodges faster than everybody else because of it, generally speaking. Now, Yes, yes, yes. On a on a on a Healbrand FB build, and I'll go over that after this. You will get higher value here because you have higher healing power, and it does a lot more healing. But that's part of your job at that point. So yeah. Just the last one over here. There's a couple ones that can be used. Now, this one is powerful, but again, it's more situational. Force of will. Now, if you look at my HP down below, it's 20,000 without any boons on. Now, if I switch from Pure Voice is the other one, let me just ping it. If I switch from Pure Voice to Force of Will, you can see I just gained 3,400 HP. That's a lot. That's 15%. So that is a lot of HP, and that's because you get 300 vitality. On top of that, depending on utility you're using, depending on build, you might gain more concentration, or you might gain even more healing power. So that is not one to be dismissed. It additionally gives you healing power to others based on your vitality, and it gives the force of will gives healing power. So this is a good one, and if you're using the heal firebrand, which I'll go over in a second, you're probably using this. Additionally, you have rid of persistence, which gives a little bit extra healing from symbols. This is not powerful enough to be worth it. I'll get to the rune after I go through the builds. And you have Pure Voice, which is the other one. Now, this one is for shout skills. When you're using the Aegis build, I go with this one over Force of Will for two reasons. First, it reduces the recharge time both on your stand your ground and your retreat. Normally, the recharge on them is 30 seconds. With the reduction, it goes down to 24 seconds. The real value is for stand your ground, because that is 6 seconds less until you can apply the 5 stacks of stability, which is the real hard one. On top of that, it converts conditions to boons on shout skills, and both of those are shout skills. Retreat and stand your ground are both shout skills. So that is a little bit of extra, but the main thing is the recharge on the shout skills. Again, both of them are very powerful, and so situationally can be used either. Force of Will, it gives you more HP. If you're having trouble surviving, go with Force of Will. Even on the Aegis build, it will give you more HP. It will give you more healing. Go with it. Pure Voice is for the recharge time and for the cleansing. Now, this is for the Aegis build. Any questions with it? Did I miss anything to cover? I think I covered pretty much everything. No questions? Okay.
Could I ask one quick question?
Yep. Go ahead.
Are you recording this?
Outer Ocean is. I don't know if he's still here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I like the most thing is you use plan. That's a very good thing. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
okay. So for the most part, for the Healbrand, you will have the Honor trait line still, and you'll have the Firebrand trait line. The one you switch out is Valor, and you put in Virtues. Now, in here, what you're getting is essentially these two. That's what you're coming in here for. But let me go over each choice separately. So on your third active trait, because these are the passive ones that you have no choice. On the third active, you have Battle of Prescience, you have Permeating Rat, and you have Indomitable Courage. Now, Permeating Rat, that's offensive, so you're not gonna be using that as a support brand. These are the two: Indomitable Courage and Battle Presence. Now, Indomitable Courage gives you extra stability, but it is not valuable enough to have. Battle Presence gives you a lot of healing, and it gives you a passive heal. What it does is basically your Tome 2 passive gets passed on to everybody in your sub squad, so they get the passive heal from Tome 2 as well. On top of that, you get endurance regeneration and you get healing. It stacks, so it's very powerful. On top of that, you can get it from here as well, and this means that you will have it nonstop. Now, Absolute Resolve also gives you conditions removed when you go into Tome 2. So this is the reason why you are in the Virtues line. All the other ones are not really that valuable. The first one is, again, depending on things, mostly it's Master of Consecrations that you're using, because none of them are really that valuable. Resolute Subconscious is for when you get disabled. So if you're having trouble with being interrupted, you can go with that. But normally you're using Master of Consecrations because it's lowering the recharge time on your hallowed ground by 20%. And it increases duration by 2 seconds, which means there's an extra 2 pulses. Instead of 8 pulses, now you have 10 pulses. Instead of 60-second recharge, you have a 48-second recharge. That is the reason. Resolute Subconscious, it gives you resolution and an Aegis, but if you're already disabled, you're already in big trouble to begin with. Might help you get out of it. However, as a firebrand, usually when you're in that situation, everybody around you is either dead or dying. So you normally wouldn't be getting much use of that. Ooh, I need to move. There we go. So that is the build you will have. And main thing is for those two. Those are the healing ones. They give you the passive heal, and they give you the extra endurance. Some condition cleansing, and so on. You also have this, which is not really valuable to you because you don't have much, you're not doing much condi damage to begin with. And you have this one when you get a little bit of extra resolution. That's about it. Now, in terms of the equipment, what you will be using, regardless which build you're using, you're going to be using a minstrel set. Minstrel all the way. Everything is minstrel. Why? Because it's giving you the 4 stats that you need. You need vitality, toughness, you need healing power, and you need concentration. The concentration right now, it's only at 62%, as you can see. That is because I don't have food on me and I haven't popped my utility. And my sigil is not charged. But I will go over one at a time each thing so that it doesn't become a jumbled thing. Bloom duration is very key because of the stability we're applying. When you're in tone 3, your skill 5 has a recharge time of 10 seconds. It also applies stability for 5 seconds with 0% boon duration. So the basic skill applies stability for 5 seconds. That means that you have 5 seconds in which you cannot apply stability with a skill, or you don't have stability. However, at 100% boon duration, that skill will apply stability for 10 seconds. Right now, my boon duration is at 62.8%, and it applies boon duration for 8 seconds and a bit. When boon duration goes up, so will this. That is true for all the other boons as well. The ages it applies, the quickness it applies. Both are very important. The resolution it applies. So boon duration for a support firebrand is very key. This is the one stat you need to have. I would say at all times in combat, minimum above 80%. If your boon duration is not reaching 80%, you need to adjust your build so that you can get it. You also don't want to overdo it so that you're going over 100%, because that means you are wasting stats, which can be put somewhere else. The second most important stat for you is healing power. After boon duration, that's healing power. Now, boon duration is most important because stability uptime is your most important job as a firebrand support. Whether it be Aegis or Healbrand, that is the most important job. Healing is secondary, even though you're a healing brand. Aegis is secondary, even though you're an Aegis brand. Stability is the number one thing. So boon duration number 1, healing power number 2. And number 3 are vitality and toughness. That's basically giving you the ability to survive for longer. Also, in using those stats, you can increase healing power or concentration through the use of utilities. This is why we're taking Minstrel, and we're taking it across the board. Now, for the infusions. The infusions essentially give you an extra amount of stats. You can use whatever combination of infusions you need to sort of massage your stats to the level you need them to get. If you need a little bit of extra concentration, use concentration infusions. If you need a little bit of extra healing, use healing infusions. It really depends on how you position the rest of the stats. What's good about them is that you can incrementally change by 5. They give you 5, and the WvW ones additionally give you 1% damage less taken, depending on the infusion. If it's a support infusion like concentration or healing power, it will reduce damage you take from lords. If it's power infusion, I think it increases damage you do to lords, or I might be wrong on that one. I don't know. In any case, don't underestimate that, because you can put one. You can put one here, 3. That's 8. You put one here, 9. Another here, 10. In one in each disc, 16 infusions. Additionally, you can put an extra one if you have a legendary backpack. So that's a lot of infusions. 16% less damage from a lord. It makes a difference. So if you're putting infusions, take the WvW ones. It makes a difference. So the infusions you use to massage the stats at the end, after you've used the things that give you the big chunks. In terms of runes, right now I'm running the superior runes of durability, and I'll explain the reason. The reason is it gives the extra boon duration, which is 15%. It's a little bit less than what you can get with some other ones. For example, rune of leadership is a good one as well, because you can get up to 25% of boon duration, and it can give you it converts conditions into boons. It is a one I used to use before, because every 20 seconds you could convert 3 conditions every on use of elite skill, I believe it was, and it had a ICD. I can't remember the exact ICD right now, but you convert conditions into boons. So it was powerful. Is this 45? Okay. 45-second ICD. So the ICD is quite long. It's still a pretty good rune to have because of the extra 25% boon duration that it can give you. Now, the rune of durability gives you 10% extra health, but the main thing is it grants additional boons. So it grants protection, it grants regeneration for 3 seconds. Those are The one is the resistance that it grants for 1 second when you get hit for the first time. Now, where this comes into play now is with interrupts. This means it gives you resistance to immobility, to chill, and to slow. This is really key when you get jumped when you're not expecting, because when you get hit, it drops it at the bottom, and it gives time to reaction to get out of the bomb without being locked into place, where torment will eat you alive in no matter what time, like in no time at all. This is why Rune of Durability has a little bit more value right now than other runes if you're running the Aegis build, because you're not focusing on healing. You're sacrificing the healing here for the extra resistance that you're giving to everybody in the sub squad on that initial hit. For the healing brand build, it's the Rune of the Monk, because it gives you the extra healing. It gives a lot of extra healing. So there really isn't another rune that can compete with Rune of the Monk when it comes to the healing firebrand. There's an additional one, which is the Rune of the Defender. That one is not as valuable for the actual firebrand, even though it's more valuable for the people around you when you have a firebrand that's running an Aegis build, because it procs every second. It can be procced to heal for 5% of max HP when an attack is being blocked. So, for example, if you're a warrior, you are high HP, but you're also berserker. That's very powerful for you. If you can sacrifice some things, use the Rune of the Defender. They'll give you more HP to begin with, because it gives vitality. It gives toughness. But that's the key one. Every second you can be healed for up to 5% of your total HP. So if you have 30k HP, you're being healed basically every time you get Aegis and you block. You're being healed for 1500. On top of that, every time you block, because the firebrand is an Aegis firebrand and is procced to heal when the Aegis is being activated, the Firebrand is healing you for another 700. So on every block, you're being healed for over 2k. If you're having trouble staying alive as a DPS, you can sacrifice a little bit of offensive power and run a more defensive rune like that. That will be very synergetic with your support and offer you a lot more healing. For the Firebrand, it will do the exact same thing because you will be applying a lot of Aegis and you will be blocking. I'm talking about the Aegis Firebrand here, even the support Firebrand, but the heal Firebrand, you want the extra healing power, really. So it is a possibility still, because healing personally for you will not be the problem most of the time. You don't need the extra healing. You can invest into something that's more valuable for the sub squad around you rather than for yourself. This is why Rune of the Defender I would not recommend for the Aegis Firebrand. I would recommend it for people that are running glass builds and for whatever reason are having a bit of a problem staying alive in fights. Run a rune like that that's defensive. Rune of the Defender if you have an Aegis Firebrand, or Rune of Durability as well can help, or another defensive rune. Help you stay alive. It will take away some of your DPS, but the main thing is you'll stay alive. That's the most important thing. The DPS is secondary. Movement, positioning is the most important thing. That helps you stay alive. If you stay alive, you can output DPS. If you die, you cannot output DPS. Doesn't matter how much you can spike. Now, in terms of the sigils, because I'm a tag, I do not run energy sigils. I do not run energy sigils because as a tag, you don't want to be caught in a situation where you have a dodge more than your sub squad, than your squad. If you have a dodge more and you take it and your squad doesn't have it, you get separated, everything gets disjointed, it's a mess. This is the reason why as a tag I don't run sigil of energy. It is good to have it. I would say it is good to have one sigil of energy on pretty much any build. The extra dodge can always be helpful. In terms of the Firebrands, you don't necessarily need the extra dodge because you have the extra endurance regeneration, and because you're tankier. But it is not a bad idea to have it. Now, in my case, I've taken a sigil of transference for a little bit of extra healing. If you're doing a Healbrand, that is a must. That one is non-negotiable. If you're doing an Aegis brand, it's not absolutely necessary, but it's good to increase the healing power as much as you can because on dodges and on Aegis, you're still healing. That's a lot of healing you're outputting. And then the second one I'm using is a Superior Sigil of Bounty. When my stacks stack up, that basically pushes my boon duration over 85% before food and before utilities. Again, that depends on the build. You can go with other sigils. You can go with the what was the sigil for healing power? Not healing power. Outgoing healing power. There's one where you can stack, much like the Superior Sigil of Bounty, where you stack
Benevolence.
outgoing healing power.
Benevolence.
Benevolence. There we go. Yep. Superior Sigil of Benevolence. It can give you up to another 12.5% outgoing healing. So that one is very good. And you can massage the concentration additionally. You should be good on concentration as it is, even if you sacrifice the Superior Sigil of Bounty. In that situation, you can go on occasion. You can sacrifice the extra cleansing if you don't need it, and run the Sigil of Mercy for the extra concentration to bridge you back. As you can see, once I put it up, I gained 8% boon duration right there from that 120 concentration.
You gotta
So,
move.
well, yep, thank you. So this is the part of the build where you're looking to get the stats to within the ranges that you need for the job you're doing. Now, this is a mess over here, but I use the magnanimous maintenance oils. The reason for that is you gain concentration based on your vitality and toughness, and those are both stats that are going to be high on you as a firebrand because you're running Minstrels, and because whatever runes you're running, usually you'll get additional toughness or vitality. This, when popped, as you can see, it now increased my boon duration by another 8%. In addition to that, when you use food, you're using food that gives at least another 70 concentration. So even without my my sigil being charged right now, I'm already at 80% almost, and with the food, I'll go to maybe 83, 84 before I have pretty much any stacks of concentration from my sigil sigil of bounty. Now, my build is not perfectly perfectly scoped, I would say. I have scoped it to be on the safe side for concentration because I tag up on this, and it is more important to me to be able to be as high in concentrate as high in boon duration as possible, so that I don't end up lacking stability because I'm providing it for myself and I'm the tag, and I'll usually be right in the middle of whatever damage there is, more often than everybody else. For that reason, I am erring on the side of caution, even if I have a little bit more concentration. When you're being a support brand, you don't need to absolutely max it out, but you want to ideally be between 90 and 100%, over 80% for sure. But as you can see, even without the sigil of bounty right now, I'm at 78, and that's without food. And with the food, you'll go over 80%. Yeah, it's about 15%. Yeah. So with it, I think I'm at about 98% or something like that. That is essentially it. It's not that that much of a brainer when it comes to the build. You don't change too many of the stats. It's just looking to get the concentration and the boon duration in that sweet spot, and then the rest you look to put into healing power. In terms of food, now there is two types of food. As a heal brand, you want to take the one food that has the two sources of healing. It gives you additional healing power. That's the one. Gives you plus 100% healing power, and it gives you plus 10% outgoing healing. Now that's two sources of healing power. Now, when you are not a heal brand, you want the other one. You want the one that gives damage reduction, or you want the one that gives toughness, concentration, and damage reduction. Which one was it? It's I think it's the aspic with mint garnish, not the fruit salad. If anybody has it, if they can ping it. What was it? Poultry aspic with mint garnish. So you're looking to maximize other stats. You can still take this one if the other one is not available. There we go. That's the one. So you get the extra concentration, the 100 concentration, you get extra toughness. Now, you can still do the fruit salad with meat garnish. It is very much possible. You can also take, I think there's one that gives you concentration and damage reduction. This one is better because the toughness then gets transformed into concentration as well because of the utility, which transformed toughness into concentration. So with this extra 100 concentration, it will push me into the range of that I need to be, so that once my sigil is charged, I'm almost at 100% boon duration. Okay, I think that's about it. Any questions?
So I just have one question about the build that we're looking at on the from Discord. So you went over like 3 different builds today.
I went over 2 builds today: the Healbrand and the Aegis brand.
Which is the one on the build Discord link?
The one we have is the Healbrand. That would be honor, virtues, and firebrand. Obviously firebrand, but honor and virtues as the trait lines. If you want to be going into the Aegis, then you're using valor instead.
Deutsch has his Aegis build posted in Pony Dexter's lab.
Yeah, I'll post it again for anybody that's interested to see it. There it is right now on the screen.
I don't have access to the screen. I mentioned that earlier.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I will post. I'll post it again in Pointy Dexter's lab, so that it's right the first thing you see when you go into that. I'll post it after, so everybody can see it. Again, these 2 builds are used for slightly different jobs in slightly different situations, and it's important for you to know when to use one or the other. You can have both, because the variation between the 2 is not that big. So the adjustments are mostly traits. You can even get away without even changing runes. If you don't have legendary armor, for example, it's cost. It's a lot of it's fidgety. You can even stay with the monk runes on the Aegis build. It's mostly the trait line. If you want to maximize it, of course, you can do those things. Now, the main thing is you need to have another source of cleansing. You need to have another source of healing in the subgroup to be able to go the Aegis build. Because otherwise, your sub squad might not have enough cleansing, especially, or not have enough healing. If that is happening, then switch from your Aegis build to your Healbrand build. Don't try to force it. It is very useful when those roles are being fulfilled by somebody else in the subgroup. When the synergy is there. If the synergy is not there, the Healbrand is the base. That's the base you fall back to. That's where you start from, and that's what you fall back to. The Aegis build is more specialized. Okay, any other questions? All
Yeah, I
right.
suppose it's always bothered me that for the Healbrand under virtues, that Master of Consecrations, we're using an entire trait for one skill. How do you justify that?
On okay, one sec. Let me go back into virtues.
Yeah, sorry about that. This is for the Healbrand,
Right.
for the
master.
virtues.
Well, the thing is, you don't have the other choices. Don't give you value. That's the reason. Resolute subconscious. It's only when you're interrupted.
Yeah, I'd sort of discard that one just looking at it. But the other one, it's like, isn't that saying that
I mean, unscathed
damage dealt?
contender, strike damage dealt is increased while you have ages.
That's
You have
half
no
of the
use for
time.
that.
Half
Yeah,
of the
but
time when I
yeah, but
strike something,
you're not doing damage to begin with.
you
Your
know, that's
support,
true. This is a good point.
that's not worth anything to you. This is useless because I mean, here, one sec. Here are my stats. I have 1,000 power.
Hmm.
With 25 stacks of might, it'll be 1750. I'm not doing much damage. I'm gonna tickle him, and I'm gonna tickle him 20% more.
You know, that's a good point. It takes me like 15 minutes to take anything down.
Yes.
So with this, it would take like 14 minutes to
So
take anything down.
in this slot, you don't really have a choice that's very much worth it. You're picking this straight line for absolute resolve and for battle precious. You're not picking it for this. This one is you're taking the best of what's available essentially.
Okay.
And
That's the best argument I've heard for that.
The 20% reduced recharge on hollow grounds, while it doesn't seem much, it's not bad, especially because it gives you an extra 2 pulses.
Yeah, I like that hollow ground.
So it's okay. It's the weakest one of the active traits of the tree on this trait line, definitely.
Okay.
But you don't get really any value out of the other ones. Now, resolute subconscious, if you're really having trouble being interrupted all the time, yes,
not me.
But if that's happening already, usually the other people in your sub squad are dead around you. So by the time you get to use this, the fight is either over or it's about to be over, and there isn't much value.
That doesn't seem like, as you say, a valuable world versus world trait. The other one, it seems like half of the time it would be giving me value instead of this one where only when I use hollowed ground. But you know, it's true. I am not trying to deal damage. That's not my thing.
No, and you don't have the skills to deal damage. So the 20%, I mean 20% of 10, and you're doing
that's
12.
good.
It's not worth it. Now, if you were spec for power, and you were doing 1,000 damage, well, then maybe we can discuss it. But
okay.
This is where the value is, especially because it gives an extra 2 pulses of stability. I mean, this is your main job, applying stability. So the extra 2 pulses of stability and resolution alone outweighed that 20%, even if you had more power, to be honest.
Well, thank you. I think I'm going to feel better about that trait than I ever have. So there.
All right. All right. Well, I'll shut this off now. And I don't know. That's about it. If I'm forgetting something, please poke me. That's about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's a lot of digest, but I mean, in time.
I wanted to go over all of the things one after the other, just because it's a complete thing. Unlike other, okay, let me just put this out there before we finish. Now, there isn't a formula for using Firebrand skills. Now, there's some combinations that are useful, but there isn't really a formula. And this is one of the reasons why I didn't go into skill use. Because you really have to learn to read the fight, and this is where the tag helps you by giving you cues when to use which skills and what combinations. Now, there are a few simple ones that you basically should know. That is, like I said, symbols and powers. That is stand your ground. And the last one, I would say, is a basic Aegis rotation. So what you can be doing is obviously retreat. You can pop it well in advance of the fight. It's actually better to pop it well in advance of the fight, so you give time for your charge to recover. Because it applies such a long duration of swiftness and Aegis, it's still there. That is the bonus of the one of the bonuses of the Aegis build as well, that you don't really need to do symbols before engagement because you have the retreat. And you can have swiftness basically uptime almost all the time unless it gets stripped. You can use the mantra of solace because it gives quickness and it gives Aegis. And then you can be, before you go into tone 3, you switch from your staff, you switch to your mace and shield, and you go through shield 4, mace 3, and you go into tone 3, skill 5, skill 4. In that order, but that's on engage, that is on first engage, without doing it too fast, because you want that Aegis to proc. You want that Aegis to be consumed before you're applying the next one.
That's a good point. I never paid too much attention to that.
Now, a key to that is, as a support, I forgot to say this from the start, and I should have started with this, you have to be in non-grid view. In the sub-squad, unless you're an LT, and it's a good idea even then, unless you have something specifically that you have to do as an LT, with sub-squads moving people around, you still should be in non-grid view. That way you're seeing in the top left corner, you're seeing all the boons and all the conditions that your sub-squad has. That is very key for you as a Firebrand, because you're getting your cues. As I said earlier, you're getting your cues from the DPS in your sub-squad. That's who is telling you when you need to use specific skills that are not being called by the tag. Like, the tag will give general callouts which are alerting the squad to the impending moment in the battle. They are there to tell you we're about to engage into heavy DPS. If he's calling for defenses, we're going to be engaging in battle. If he is calling for empower and swiftness, and so on. These callouts are basically to prepare you for what's to come. They're not to tell you exactly what skills to use. At that point, knowing that what's following, that's what's going to follow in terms of the battle, then you know what you need to be focused on delivering. In the case of the Firebrand, when we're going to be pushing, you know you need to upkeep the stability. You know that the Aegis is your friend to apply to minimize damage that's incoming, especially power damage. And you're looking on your DPS in the sub-squad. So that would be Scourges, that would be Revenants, that would be Weavers, DPS classes in your sub-squad. That's who you're focusing on. And you're looking at their conditions, and they're looking into your boons. They don't have if they don't have Aegis, pop an Aegis. Give it to them. Even if you still have it, give it to them. They have conditions. The scrapper is not being able to. You can still do that. You can use retreat as a cleanse, and if you need more, you can switch to Mantra of Lore for more cleansing, or into Tome 2, whatever. But that's where you're getting your cues. When you're in party view, non-grid view, on the side, looking at your DPS people. They are the ones telling you what's happening and what you need to be doing. The tag will give you the general situation, where the battle is at, where the squad's going to be moving, and don't worry if you're not right on with the cues initially. It takes time. It takes time, it takes fights. This is why I say we need to go through fights, and we need to go through fights with organized groups so that we can recognize the situation when we're going into them. Because there isn't time for the tag or for anybody to give detailed instructions every moment for every skill to be used on every profession. This is why there are general calls that are calling your attention to the certain situation. This is the situation you should be expecting. That type of an engagement. And then you know what to focus on. It takes time. That part takes time, and you don't have to worry about it. I would say err on the side of using skills. Look to get more efficient with skills over time as you get more comfortable. Don't worry about efficiency at the start. It is better to have used the skill and not have needed it than to have died and not used the skill at all. So even if you use the skills too fast, use them. With time, you'll get more comfortable, the game will slow down, and you'll get more efficient with it, and you'll be able to look more often and see where your sub squad is, and start timing your skill use. And at a certain point, you won't even have to look over there. Just by the way the battle is happening, you'll have a feel that you need to do it. You need to use skills. You'll have a timing on using the skills. That will evolve over time with fights. And so, as I'm saying, don't worry about that part. That part will come on its own. The key part is movement and positioning. That part you do need to work on before your efficiency and skill use gets good. Movement and positioning are the first two most important things that you need to focus and that you need to perfect before your skill use becomes efficient. And that is more creating habits. That's why I keep on talking about habits. I know people sometimes get mad at me, think maybe I'm being negative, but that is the reason. Because once those things are there, then you can work on efficiency with your skills, because there isn't other things that are stopping you from actually being able to focus on that and getting the timing. And eventually it will be just a tick in your mind, just by seeing the damage they're applying on the ground, you'll know what skill you need to pop, and you'll be doing it automatically. And you will get to that point, I promise you. Just as you have gotten a long way along the road from a year ago, a lot of you. You will get to that point.
So a quick question again. When a skill says like number of allies target, is that just referring to the allies in your subgroup?
No, this is basically, it's the people it will affect. It will affect you and 4 other people. When it says 5, it means you and 4 other.
Or anybody in our squad or that's in range, it'll just pick them at random.
In range. It will pick. Okay, I will explain the mechanic of it. So
The reason why I ask is because we're looking at our fellow squad members and we're trying to give them ages, but if it just gives 5 random members, how do we know we can give it to them?
Right. Okay, I will explain the mechanic right now. So if nobody's in a squad and we're just sitting here, we're on the same team because we're on the same server. It will pick the 5 people that are closest to the center of where the skill is being cast. So I'm casting it right on top of me. It will affect the 5 people that are closest to me if we're not in a squad. Once we're in a squad, the priority becomes squad members first. So anybody that's not in the squad will be considered after everybody in the squad is considered first. So I can have a pug that is not in the squad sitting right there next to me. As long as there's 5 people within the squad, within the circle, they will get it first, and that pug will not, even though he's closer to me. Now, after that, we have subgroups. It works in the exact same way, but it becomes even smaller. So the people in the subgroup get it first, then the people in the squad, and then everybody else. So this is why we comp subgroups. We create subgroups with specific professions put together because they give boons and they give cleanses and heals and so on to each other first, as long as they're close enough to receive them, if they're in range. If not enough people are in range of the subgroup, however, the extra leftover goes to the squad. Anybody within the squad that's close enough. And this is why we use the tag as the focal point of the whole squad. So everybody's close around the tag, and that guarantees that your squad members will be there too. So you don't have to look for them where they are. And if they're spread out, you cannot give them. But if not all of them are next to you, it will be somebody within the squad that is the closest to you that will get it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right. Well, I think we can call the Firebrand training over, and we can go and get some participation now, because I guess this went on for a long time, for which I apologize. But I think it's better to go over it in detail at least once rather than muddle little bits by little bits.